Welcome back to my workshop. Now today I've got a couple of pieces of wood and I'm going to try and turn them into a jewellery box. Okay, what's this? Okay, so what we've got here is a couple of pieces of wood. These are from an old door frame from an old wooden conservatory. I think these are sapele. The problem is they've got all these sort of profiles on them. Okay, I've got two bits of that. Don't quite know of a design yet for the jewellery box. So the first thing I've got to do is rip this into slithers of wood so I can make some boards which will give me a base to make the jewellery box. So what I'm going to use for that is obviously my bandsaw. Right, so I haven't used my bandsaw for quite a while for rip cuts. What I've done is I've put a larger blade in here. This is now 3/4 of an inch, okay, so I can get some decent cuts. I've checked my table is flat using an angle, okay, so I'm happy with that. Also checked to make sure that my fence is actually square as well, okay. So I'll set this up. I probably want my boards probably about 10mm thick. So let me set this up and start throwing them through. So now I've cut these into boards about 10mm thick. What I need to do is actually glue these all together like this to give me my base material. Now obviously some of them have got funny profiles on the end, okay, which I need to cut from the bandsaw again, and then obviously I need to edge them, okay, so I've got to run them over the planer so I've got a good jointable edge. Okay, again, it's been quite a while since I've used the planer for actually jointing. So what I've done is I've checked my fence is square on both sides, inlet and outlet. And I've also checked that my table is flat and adjusted correctly. Okay, so now what I've got to do is run each of these pieces through here and see if I can get a nice square edge. Right, I was going to quickly put these through the planer thicknesser, but my blades need changing. And I've also noticed that even though I've only just cut these, they've already started to distort. Let me show you a bit closer. I'll put it on the table saw. All right, so there must have been some tension in this board or in this piece of wood. I've obviously released the tension and it is now a bit distorted. So what I'm going to have to do is quickly glue these together. Right, I've had to jump forward a little bit here because my camera went flat, the battery went flat, but I couldn't stop. I've had to now glue these up. So basically, because I had slats like this and I needed them wider, I've just basically glued on the edge into two pieces, okay? So now I have this. They've been sticking overnight. So let's now take these out of the clamps and see how twisty they are. Right, so we've got our two boards here. They've been clamping overnight. They don't seem too bad. A little bit wibbly wobbly here. So let's get these on the planer. Right, just to have a word with myself. Obviously I'm using the planer now, but I've got these. Look, they're dangling. Never use any machinery if you've got dangly bits of string. Okay? Oh. Drop me your microphone. Okay, make sure you got everything out of the way and don't knock your microphone off. Right, so these have now been through the planer. They're as flat as I can get them now. Okay. The problem is we got things like this. Okay, this was obviously on the end of the piece of wood. There's a cut here, and then halfway down one of them there's this, which is a screw. Obviously that was in the original piece of wood. Again, this split here. So what I'm going to have to do is cut these off at the ends. We've also, where I've planed them down, we started off at 10 mil, we're now down to about 8.6, 8.7. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is cut these on the table saw because one is thicker than the other. Okay, so I've got to trim these down so they're both the same size. Cut off the ends so I know then how much good wood I've got to play with. So let's get the table saw going. Right, it's getting quite late now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave this for tonight. What I'm going to do is, because these are starting to twist as they have been moved around and cut, I'm going to leave them on the bench overnight, cover them over, and I'm actually going to put some weight on them, like this. Just to keep them flat overnight, and then tomorrow evening I can carry on. Right, let's go and have a cup of tea. Right, so these have been flattening out overnight. They seem fairly flat now, which is good. Hopefully once I get them into a box shape, then they'll rigid up a little bit. So, how big is this going to be? Let's go over to the design studio and try and figure it out. Right, so I only have the two pieces of wood to work with, so I've got to be very careful how big I cut it. Now I think the whole box is going to be probably, okay, the whole box is probably going to be about 30 centimetres long, probably about 13 centimetres deep and about 13 centimetres high. Now I think with that, then I should be able to get all of that out of these two pieces of wood. Let's start cutting it and find out how we get on. Right, so this is about the size of it at the moment. I think it might be a little bit too tall, considering how wide it is. It might be a bit too tall, but I can address that in a moment. What I wanted to do now is on the corners, they're going to be mitered. Okay, so 45 degree on each corner, and it's all going to be glued, and then maybe an insert or three down the sides. Okay, so what I've got to do now is basically mitre these corners. I'm going to do it on a table saw, so I've got to set this to 45 degrees. And then what I'm going to use, I don't like using it, but I'm probably going to use my mitre here. Okay, let's try one and see what happens. If it all goes wrong, I can always make it a little bit smaller. This is basically the box so far. It's not stuck together, I've just got it taped. I've done the mitre corners, I've cut the top and I've cut the bottom. Now this has raised a couple of issues. One, the box looks way too tall. It probably needs to be about 3/4 the height of this. Also, a couple of the mitres have not come out too well. So let me quickly show you those. Right, hopefully you're going to be able to see this. Now this mitre's not too bad, and this one's not too bad. Okay, around the other side here, if I can try and turn it around. This one here, it hasn't quite cut that up to the edge, so it's ended up not quite right. So I'm probably going to have to recut this. Which is a bit of a pain, because that means I lose some length, which means then the lid is not going to fit. At the minute the lid doesn't fit, as you can see, it overhangs a little bit. I've got to trim it off with a plane, but at the bottom here, let's see, I think it's around the other side. Okay, here we go. Now look, so there's a little gap there. Can you see the tip? Okay, so this, which is going to be the bottom, has actually got a slight bulge in the middle. Even though it's been through the planer, it's got a slight bulge, which is making this a bit tippy. These are going to be insert into the box anyway, so there's going to be a rabbit along here. So I've got to address that. This looks too tall. Recut this mitre. Oh, what a pain. Right. I think that might be enough for tonight. Let's readdress this tomorrow. But other than that, we're getting there. Right, so that was another change of plan. Obviously, what was going to be my top is a little bit distorted, so I can't actually use that. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's very tippy. Okay, so I can't use that. So what I've had to do is use another spare piece, the last piece I've got, and basically cut the length down. So I've cut the length down. Now what I want to do is cut the height down. I'll probably take it to about 100 mil. Okay, so I've got my table saw set up. I'm going to make sure I mark the top on all of them, so I'll cut it on the same side. Otherwise the joins won't join up. Okay, right, let's cut them. Right, I've now cut it down to height. I've just spotted another problem. Again, another dry fit. I've got the base here pushed up against my fence, and I've also got the box pushed up against the fence. And I've got a gap here, look. So the actual lid is smaller than the box. And funny enough, it's about the thickness of my pencil. So what this means is I've now got to recut this mitre and the one on the other side to reduce this by another 1.5 mil, I think. Oh, that's a pain. So now I've got to set my table saw up again to cut another mitre. Right, so now I've cut down the mitres again, okay, to reduce it by a couple of millimetres. That means I've got a teeny tiny little bit of overhang on the top and the bottom. But what I can do is I can either sand that down or plane it down after I've finished. What I'm going to do, I was going to assemble it all at once, glue it all at once, but I think what I'll do is I'll glue the main box and then I'll rebate my lid and my base and then stick them on separately. Okay, so the next thing is to glue this together. Right, so what I'm doing now is I'm doing the top and the bottom. Now I've obviously cut my pieces of wood already. And what I've done is I've got to end up with this. Okay, so it's basically a rebate or rabbit, whatever you want to call it, around the edge. And this is going to fit nicely with these rebates in the top of my box. Okay, that's the plan. Okay, and the way I've done that is I've basically taken my piece of wood, my base, I've put my box over it, then I've marked on the inside, okay, which has given me this set of marks. Okay, so I've got a pencil mark all around the edge. So this way there'll be a little bit of an overhang which I can then plane off or sand down. Okay, and then the way I'm going to get this rebate is by running it through the table saw. Here I've got the blade set to about half the depth of my my lid and my base, and then basically I'm going to move the fence in and out to trim it down to the lines. Okay, that's the way I've been doing it. Normally I'd do this on my router table, but at the moment I don't have one, so this is the only way I can do it at the moment. Okay, let me carry on. Right, so obviously because I've used the table saw blade, it's not giving me a fantastic finish here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly finish it with my edge plane here. Okay, this is called an edge plane because the blade goes all the way up to the edge. Whereas on my old number 4 here, you can see there's a little bit of land either side where there's no blade. Okay, but with this one, I can get right up close to the edge. Okay, like that. Okay, let's make that smooth, shall we? Right, so the next thing I've got to do is obviously stick the top and the bottom on, but if you look, there's still a bit of where I had the glue there. Okay, I want to try and get rid of that before I stick the top and the bottom on. because otherwise once the bottom's on or the top's on, I'm not going to be able to get right into the corners. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly now give that a little bit of a sand just to get rid of some of these marks. Right, so now they fit okay. What I want to do is get it stuck together as quick as possible because it's quite cold in the workshop and temperatures are changing. It's only got to warm up a little bit and these start to distort. So what I want to do is get this quickly glued up, clamped up, and then leave it overnight. So what I'm going to use is just my normal Gorilla Glue, a spear of glue all around the rebate, put them together, clamp it up. Right. Right, let's leave this monster to dry. Don't forget, clean up your glue. Otherwise, next time you go to use it, it's going to be all sticky. Sorted. Right, it's been sticking overnight now. If you look on the edges here, I've got a little bit of an overhang on all of the edges. That was the plan. So what I'm going to do now is, with my little plane here, I'm going to just quickly take off the edges and then give the whole box a bit of a sand to make sure there's nothing untoward. Right, so finally, after a lot of sanding and faffing around, we've now got our box, but obviously this is just a box. It hasn't got a lid. So what we've got to do is cut the lid off. We're going to do that on the table saw. But what I don't want to do, I don't want to just cut through, because what can happen is as the lid separates, it can pinch the blade. Okay, we want to avoid that. So what we're going to do is cut most of the way through, and then we're going to finish it off by hand. Okay, so what we're going to do is the pieces of wood that we cut off because this was too long, they are the right thickness, so I can use those to set up my table saw to cut most of the way through. Right, so the top's cut off now. What I've got to do is make a little shelf here. So what I'm going to do is cut some pieces of wood like this, and then what will happen is the tray will sit on top of here. Okay, and for that I'm going to use this, which was going to be the original top, and just basically going to cut them on the table saw into strips, do some miter corners and put those in the bottom. That's what I'm going to do now. Right, so now I've got my bottom layer in to act as a shelf. What I need to do is exactly the same thing because I now need to make the tray. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, but very slightly smaller, so it's like a piston fit in here. You don't want it too tight because otherwise people won't be able to get the tray out. You don't want it too loose because it'll be a bit floppy. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same thing again, but slightly smaller. Right, so I now have my internals made for my tray. Okay, these are slightly smaller, so it goes in and out okay. What I need now is a base, so I'm going to use this, which is hardwood ply. It's only 3mm thick, but I'm hoping that by the time it's all stuck together, it should be fairly rigid. So what I've got to do now is cut this to the same size as that. Okay, let's make this square first. Okay, before I stick this box together, what I'm going to do is it's got to be able to accommodate this, which is a special piece of jewellery. Okay, this has got to go in here. I'm probably going to have it in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a partition here and here using my last piece of battening. Okay, that's going to go there. So what I'm going to do is rebate this side and this side, on both sides, and then rebate it with that. Okay, that's the plan. So if I do these both at the same time, then I know it's going to be square. Right, so I've now cut my rebates here and here. These obviously correspond with each other this way and this way. I've clamped it with this picture framing clamp just for now, just to hold it square. Then that way I can accurately measure this and then cut my batten, okay, which is good. So this should now be 104mm. Right, let's cut that. Okay, so I've cut my rebates here. I've now cut my battens. Yeah, I went one too many passes on the rebate, and oh, let's get this in. Although they fit nicely that way, there's a little bit of a gap. Not much. I'm sure we can get away with that. Right, stick this together. Right, so the top bit of the tray is now glued. I'm going to leave that to dry before I stick the bottom on. I'll just put it on a bit of tissue because I don't want it sticking to this, because if it does, then it's ruined. So let's leave this to dry and go and have a cup of tea. Right, while I'm waiting for the first part of the tray to dry, what I want to do is at the very bottom and inside the lid, I want to line it with this, which is a piece of foam. It's orange because she loves orange. Okay, so what I've done is I've had a bit of a clean up. I've made sure all my tools are clean. I'm just going to cut a piece of this for the top and the bottom while I'm waiting for the tray to dry. So let's get on with that. Right, so now I've cut the liner for the lid and for the base. Obviously in the base here, I've got the shelf. So I think what I need to do is I need to do the same for the top. I've got another small, about 10mm batten here. So I'm going to cut some more miters and put this in here. In the meantime, I'll keep these clean because I can then use these to line the actual tray. So let's put these somewhere clean. Right, this has been sticking for a little while now. It should be enough. What I want to do is now stick it to the base. So it should be just a case of taking this off and this off. And sticking it to the base. Now obviously I want to put some weight on this once I've stuck it because I need it to be flat. So all I'm going to do is a bit of glue on here. Right, before I start doing the design on the top of the box, what I want to do is, where this joint is between the lid and the box, I want to do a little taper. Okay, so what I want to do is end up with this sort of thing. Okay, so that way they've got somewhere to put their fingers in to lift up. So all I'm going to do is put a little chamfer on the edge, like I've done here. And to do that, I'm going to use this really dodgy setup here of my router because I don't have a router table at the moment. So I'm going to use that and quickly go around the edges. Right, so we're getting there. The box is almost all the components are complete. I've got a little box in there now, chamfered over all the edges so it doesn't catch. What I want to do now is a quick engraving on the top. I've already done the file, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get that going. Right, so for this engraving, I'm going to use my SculptFun S9 with obviously my laptop. This is all sitting on top of my CNC machine at the moment because I haven't got my enclosure made yet. The design that's going on the front is this. Okay, so you've got this cartoon character and some words here. The words are not going to be a line like this, they're going to be solid like this. Okay, so that's a rough idea. So what I've got to do is set up so I know exactly where I'm going to put my lid. Right, just doing a bit of engraving on the front of the box here. Now this is what I want to engrave, some words on the front, but obviously the box is now made, so I've had to raise my whole laser up. Now it's sitting on top of my CNC machine at the moment, so I got propped up on boxes just to get the height, but it seems to be working. Let's see what it comes out like. Right, what I'm trying to do here is make some ring storage, okay, so little foamy bits so you can put rings in like this. I just wanted to show you quickly how I've made them. Let's pull this whole thing out. I've got this, okay, and all that is bits of foam, and I've folded them in half like this, stuck along that edge, and then with some little battens of wood I've stuck them together like that, all using just some CA glue. I've done that loads of times and I've ended up with this. Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm stuffing some of this, which is for stuffing teddy bears and stuff. Okay, so all of that lot can then sit in here like that. Okay, so you can put rings in. And it seems to work, so I think I'll go with that. Nice. Right, let me carry on stuffing. Right, so we've now got all our components of the box. We've got the main box here with some engraving on it, and also a hole in the bottom for my token. We've got the lid, obviously with some engraving on it. We've got to put the orange in here, which is over here. We've got the tray, the inserts for the tray, and also the ring insert. This is for the shelving at the bottom, and this is to hold inside the lid. So what I've got to do now is give all of the wooden parts a coating of wax. I'm going to use this stuff, which is from Handicraft. Thanks, Leo. Now this is vegan friendly, so this should be good. Right, I'm going to wax this, then put it together. Right, so that's a coat of wax on all of these parts. What I'll do is leave it to dry for a couple of minutes and then give it a quick buff off and then put it together. Right, well that's about it. It's all finished, all done, all waxed. As I say, I've used Leo's from Handicrafts wax, which is vegan friendly. The whole box is done now. We've got the engraving on the top, got the engraving on the front. I've also got a little character on here. I've put these corners on to protect the corners and to decorate it a little bit. Inside, we're fully lined. Okay, we have a removable tray and the bottom is lined as well. Okay, underneath, we've got my little token, which is always nice. Okay, so this is now ready to give to my sister for her 60th birthday. Here's a special present. I hope you have a happy birthday. All right, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Ah, no. Because what can happen is as you cut through, the blade can actually, how am I going to describe that? I don't know. Let's think of something. Oh. Drop me your microphone.